thing I'm really passionate about is showing home educating families that maths doesn't all have to be textbooks and worksheets. So I have designed a series of mini projects to enable home educating families to teach maths from home in a fun and engaging way. The first project is to build and design a real-life doll's house completely from scratch. So in the description, I have included a link to a completely free downloadable workbook that goes with lesson 1. And there's also a link to lesson 1 live in action that I did with some home educated students, and they absolutely loved it. This project involves a whole range of math skills, as you can see from the slide. You've got scale drawings, plans and elevations, as they have to draw the house from different angles. You're looking at area and perimeter, having to work out the area of the rooms, the perimeter of the rooms, the perimeter of the house, so they can then work out how much of each material they're going to need. Volume comes in when you're calculating how much paint is in a tin, how much area will it cover. They're also going to look at budgeting, so they've given a budget and they have to make sure that they can complete the house and the painting and the decorating within budget using materials, and then they actually go out and buy those materials as well, and there's lots of problem solving in there too. I am going to go over how to draw a plan view, a front elevation and a side elevation, and we'll start to look at scale. And this all ties in with lesson 1 of the project, because they have to design their doll's house and then draw the views from different angles. And this ties in nicely with GCSE, because you have questions that come up quite often where they'll ask you to draw the plan, the front and side elevation of a 3D object. So it applies to real life, but also links to the GCSE as well. So task 3 of the Doll's House project workbook is asking you to draw a front elevation. Now what that is essentially just the view you would see if you were standing looking at the house front on. So although the house is in 3D, you wouldn't see this side of the house if you were looking at it directly from the front. You would see the front of the house in 2D. So I would start having a discussion about what shapes can you see. So we've got rectangular windows, we've got a triangular porch roof, a rectangular chimney, and getting them to discuss what that would look like. And then I would actually get them to draw it. Now, when they do their drawing, they're not going to be drawing it from a house, they're going to be designing it. But I would get a scrap piece of paper and get them to practice with this image first, or a image of a house, so they can think about what a plan, what a front elevation actually looks like. So make sure they use a ruler and a pencil. So I am going to draw mine here. So there's 26 squares here, so I'm going to make mine 24 centimetres long. It does tell you on the task before that each square is 2 by 2 centimetres, or represents 2 by 2 centimetres. So this is 22 squares here. So I would get them talking about, well, how many centimetres would that be? If each square is 2 centimetres and we've got 22 squares, hopefully they then recognise you double that. So this would represent a width of 44 centimetres. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be their actual dollhouse. This is just a drawing, because you can talk about scaling up later. So then I'm going to draw the side of the house here, and I'm going to go up here so that I've got 10 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. Yeah. And again, make sure they're drawing this with a ruler and a pencil. And it would just look like a rectangle, the base of the house there. Now, if you have a look at the roof is slanted here. It looks slanted, but if you were staring at it from the front, you wouldn't see the slant, because you don't see in 3D, you see in 2D. So it would just look like a rectangle sitting on top of another rectangle. So that's again a discussion that you can have with them about what that would look like, even though it's got a slant. You could even take them outside and have a look at some houses straight on, so that they can see that's what they would see there. So I'd start with the house itself and the roof. You could then put the chimney on top. Again, you would only see the top of the chimney here, and again that would look rectangular. It doesn't have to be exact. It's just, this is getting them to think about scale and getting them to think about drawings. They're not at the stage where they're going to be sitting GCSE exams just yet. So that would be the roof, that would be the chimney, and then we've got the house there. So now I would get them thinking about where would the door go? Well, this house looks like it's got the door in the middle. So the middle would be 11 squares in, which was round about there. So you would maybe want them to get their door here, and it sort of goes up nearly halfway to the house, not quite. So I would get them thinking about that, because they're thinking about how architects would maybe build a house and how they would do their drawings, and I would draw the door. You would then see the porch of the roof. Again, that would come from the middle outwards, so it would look something like that. And then you can get them to think about the positioning of the windows. So if their house is going to have 2 floors, halfway is here, which is 5 squares up. And the windows are, so the house is symmetrical. So you want to make sure it's an even number of squares. You want to make sure that the windows are directly above each other. They look like they are a similar size. So there again, some of the things that you can be discussing. The windows here to me look like they are in the middle of where the door is to the wall. So again, and I would make it's 3 squares wide. So if you want to get that in the middle of where the door and the window is, you're not going to be able to get that exact with the number of squares that I've used here. So I'm going to draw it slightly closer to the door. So I've got 3 squares there, and it's going to be 3 squares there, 2 squares there, and 2 squares there. Again, they're going to be designing theirs from scratch, so they can make theirs look however they like. But it's a good idea to get the discussion going. They don't need to worry about the design features at this stage, so they don't need to draw the hatching in the window, just the actual rectangles of the windows there. So then if you've got the middle of the house here, you're not going to want the windows base starting directly there, because that's going to be the second floor, but you do want it above the window below. So I'd maybe go a square up, and then I would draw another window the same size directly above the one that I have below, and the same on the other side here. So I'm rushing mine a little bit, so my lines aren't completely straight. So it would look something like that, and that's just your door and your windows. And then obviously you've got these windows up here in the roof, because this doll's house has a 3rd floor. They're slightly smaller, but they are in line with the windows below. So I would draw a 2 by 2 square for that window here. And again, it doesn't sit directly on top of the roof, so I've left a gap. And then you would draw your squares. These are squares, not rectangles. That's again something that you can discuss. What is the difference between a square and a rectangle? And then they've obviously got an archway on top, which would look like, if you were from the front, it would look like those archways touch the top of the roof, because obviously the roof is slanted. So that is something like what it would look like when you're drawing your front elevation of this house. You could then start to have a discussion around scale. So we've already looked at the base, it's 22 squares. The height of the house here up to the roof, well, that is 10 squares. Again, get them thinking about what would that be in centimetres. If each square represents 2 centimetres, that would be 20 centimetres. And I would get them to think, what does that look like? How wide is that? It's a good idea to have a tape measure, and you can show them what that looks like in reality. And they can start thinking about, is this too small? Am I going to need to scale my doll's house up? Again, here with the roof, that's 4 squares here for the roof. So that's 4 squares, so that's going to be 8 centimetres. So you can then start talking about how tall do they want their actual house to be, how wide do they want it to be. Use a tape measure to show them what that would look like, and then they can start thinking about how many times they're going to scale their actual diagram up. So that is front elevation. So let's have a look now at the side elevation. So the side elevation is exactly what it says. It's what you would see if you were looking at this house here from the side. So not the front now. So you would just see it in 2D, and you would just see this shape here, and you would see the windows here. And on this house, the chimney is on this side. The one that we drew earlier, the chimney was over here. So I'm going to ignore the chimney in this drawing. So when you're thinking about the side elevation, you need to think about making sure it matches up with your front elevation. So if you think in the last slide, we made that 10 squares high, which was 20 centimetres. So it's going to need to match. We haven't decided the depth of the house yet, so they can use what they want here for this measurement here. So I'm going to start with the base again. again of the side view. So if I start here in the middle, it's not as wide as the main house, so I'm going to make this 10 squares wide. Actually, let's go with 11 because that will mean I can put the window in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to make mine 11 squares wide. And now the height of the house has to match with the height on your front elevation, which was 10 squares. So I'm going to go up 10 squares here, which is there. Okay, and so I'm going to need to match that up on the other side because this side here matches up with the front elevation that you drew earlier. And similarly with the roof, we made our roof 4 squares tall, which was 8 centimetres. So let me just draw this bit. Actually, you don't need to draw that line across there because there is no line here, so it wouldn't match the diagram. So don't draw the line across the middle as I was about to do there. You're now going to draw the roof, and it's got to be 4 centimetres tall. So the middle is actually here because I've used 11 squares, and it needs to be 4 centimetres tall. So you can discuss what if this is 11 squares, where's halfway, what's half of 11, and get them thinking about that as well. So that's got to be the top of my roof here because it's only 4 squares high, which matches my front elevation. So you would then join up your roof to the base of your house here. So that would be your side view. Now again, if you're thinking about the window, this window actually looks like it sits on top of where the roof starts, and you want it in the middle, so it's going to be 2 by 2 squares. So actually what I should have done is used 10 squares, but never mind, we've done it now. So these are the sorts of things you can discuss when you're drawing. So we're going to make that 2 squares wide, 2 squares high, and I'm going to draw my window in here. Again, you don't need to worry about the hatching in the window. So I then have my window below. So my windows in the previous slide were 2 squares high. This window looks slightly higher, so I'm going to draw this window 3 squares high. And it looks smaller to me, so I'm going to make this one match the window above, but I'm going to make it taller. So I'm going to go like that. So it's below the window above, and it's slightly taller, and that is something like your side elevation there. It's just what you would see if you're looking at the side. Remember, as I said, it doesn't need to be completely exact. It's just to get them talking about what they would see and talking about scale and how you would match up your front elevation with your side elevation there. Something I have learned in my 18 years of teaching maths is students definitely learn better when they can see how the maths links to real life, and that's exactly why I am creating these home maths projects. And if you would like to take part in the Doll's House project yourself, there is a link in the description where you can download the free workbook that goes with lesson 1. And if you're interested in finding out more about the online GCSE classes that I will be running from September, there is also a link in the description that you can book a free online consultation call with me to discuss whether these could potentially be a good fit for your child. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next part of the project.